Good afternoon. I'm Mike Molenaar. I'm with Mountain West Pipeline and have Reed Page with Summit Energy. And we're going to give an update on what's happening with the Midstream in the Uintah Basin, specifically with gas takeaway out of the basin. So I want to say a little bit about Mountain West Pipeline. We've changed hands a few times recently, so just want to let people know who we are. So we started out as Questar Pipeline, part of Questar Corporation. Our affiliate is Questar Gas, the local distribution company. In February of 2016, Dominion Energy acquired all of Questar Corporation, so the pipeline company that I work for, and Questar Gas, the local distribution company that provides gas to people's homes and businesses. The pipeline, we're part of the interstate pipeline system. We transport large volumes of gas across the country. And then in December of 2021, Dominion Energy decided to get out of the gas pipeline business. So they sold Questar Pipeline to Southwest Gas. They kept the gas company. They still own the gas company. And then right after Southwest Gas bought us, they immediately put us up for sale. And in February this month, Williams acquired us. And that integration is complete 6 months later. We're now fully integrated into Williams. And if you have been communicating with us via email, our email addresses should be good from here on out.
Okay.
So just a little bit about Williams. Williams has over 5,000 employees, and we handle about a third of the gas on a daily basis in the United States. You can see on this map where Williams' assets are. And I'm going to focus on the Mountain West piece in Utah, southwest Wyoming, and a little bit into Colorado. So this is the Mountain West system. It's kind of like an H on its side. Most of the gas, we have a southern system that you can see and a northern system, and then there's a pipeline that connects the two. A lot of the gas on our system moves from east to west. It wants to get to markets along the Wasatch Front, and then we're also connected to other interstate pipelines to deliver the gas to California. That's another big market for the gas. So just in general, the gas flows east to west on our system. Our system is bidirectional, so it can flow either direction. And the area highlighted in red is our assets in the Uintah Basin, and I'm going to focus on those. So this is a Google Earth shot of our pipelines in the Uintah Basin. So a little bit west of here, in the Mighton area, we have two pipes coming down. I'm going to drill into the details on those in a little bit. And then they hit our mainline pipelines, which are the ones that kind of go east to west. So in the Uintah Basin, we have 5 pipelines that deliver gas down to our mainline. It's like a Y. We have a 12-inch pipeline that comes from Altamont down to Mighton. We have another pipeline that comes from the Bluebell processing plant down to Mighton. Then at Mighton, we have 2 pipelines that go down to our main lines. And at Brundage, we have a 3rd pipeline that comes down to our main lines. When those main lines were constructed, they were constructed to move gas from the east to the west, to those markets that I was telling you about. About 10 years ago, to help get gas out of the Uintah Basin and send it to processing at Chipeta, we reversed the flow in one of those main lines between this junction down here and Chipeta plant. So you can see those purple areas. So we turned that around to deliver gas out of the basin to Chipeta. So we get processed gas from Altamont and Bluebell, comes down to Mighton, where we receive unprocessed gas. And then currently at Brundage, we're getting processed gas coming in, and then we send a blended stream to Chipeta. And currently we send 125,500 decatherms per day on a firm basis. So for those of you that don't know what firm means, shippers sign a contract with us. We just transport the gas. So if they sign a firm contract, they know that they can get their gas from point A to point B, barring any force majeure or any maintenance issues. So that's what firm is. If there's space available operationally, then they can flow gas too, but you can't always count on that. So recently we put in some control valves to help get more gas out of the basin. So we were able to flow an additional 40,000 decatherms per day on an operationally available basis. So the total right now that we flow out of the basin to Chipeta is 165,500 decatherms per day. In the process of trying to get more gas out of the basin, we isolated the line from Bluebell down to Mighton and then connected it to that 6-inch line. And that is capable of delivering 15,000 decatherms per day in and out of the basin. We do supply gas up in the Bluebell area and Mighton to the LDC, our once affiliate, Questar Gas. So that gas all needs to stay like pipeline quality. We can't have any unprocessed gas coming in. So that's the current situation. We're completely full. We don't have any, can't offer any more firm capacity. And this operationally available capacity that we started offering last fall is being used quite a bit. So now we're working on roughly doubling the amount of firm that we can deliver out of the basin. So we're going to go from the 125,500 decatherms per day to 250,000 decatherms per day. And then the OAC would go away as part of that. It essentially becomes firm. And we're regulated by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, so we're open access to anybody that wants us to transport their gas. So we need to go out with an open season, and it gives shippers an opportunity to bid. And we're hoping to go out with that middle of next month. And then after that, we've heard from producers that space is going to get used up right away. And so we're looking at doing, seeing what we can do next. And what we're looking at is extending our 138 pipeline. So that's the biggest diameter pipe we have from Brundage down to the junction. It's a newer pipe, higher pressure, so it's capable of moving more. But if we extended that roughly 35 miles to Chipeta, we could move another 85,000-ish decatherms per day, bringing the total to about 335,000 decatherms per day. So hopefully that helps alleviate the constraint of getting the associated gas, giving it somewhere to go, so oil production is not curtailed. And that was all I had. Reed, do you want to step up?
My name's Reed. That one, okay. Oh yeah, I'm with Summit Energy. We're headquartered in downtown Salt Lake. I think we might be the only gas marketer in the Rockies that has an HQ in Salt Lake City. But we do producer services. We monetize gas for producers, mostly smaller independents, but also to a degree some wholesale transactions with actually some of the producers right here in this room. Commercial and industrial sales. We have a book of business where we sell natural gas on kind of a unique basis to larger industrial and commercial end users throughout the state of Utah, as well as a few other locations outside of the state of Utah. But we specialize in trade, transport, and risk management for natural gas flows, whether you're a buyer or a seller. Other random stuff, like I'm in the middle of these like small flare gas mining, Bitcoin mining operations, which are really, really fun. And I definitely don't get bored. So Summit Energy, we've been around for 25 years, I guess, probably something like that. But oh yeah, and then just about me. This is a reminder that we do business with human beings, not just hopefully with faceless corporations, but that's me and my family. I'm originally from Roosevelt, Utah, from Neola actually. 3 miles south of the store. And I went to Union High School, and I just wanted to plug UB Tech, as well as Utah State University. I did about half of my undergraduate university work here at Utah State University between the Roosevelt and Uintah campuses while I was still in high school, starting freshman year of high school, actually. I also got my welding certificate through, at the time, Uintah Basin Applied Technology College, my CDL during senior year of high school, as well as participating in the very earliest version of the petroleum technology programs, I believe in 2006, when there was a gentleman named Daryl Haddon who was offering, who had this class about all these different oil and gas related aspects. And I told my parents I wanted to go to this class, and my mom said, I think I'll go with you. And so I took that class with my mom and a whole bunch of industry professionals, guys from the field, which was super awkward, to be honest. Anyway, but yeah, and I went to Utah State in Logan, as well as here. I studied finance and economics. So I'm not an engineer, but a lot of people mistake me for an engineer because I like to get into the weeds. But yeah, I'm director of gas marketing operations as well as business development. So anything weird and interesting ends up on my desk. But all right, back to the pipelines. Okay. All right, so we got a lot of pipelines. As was discussed earlier in the Western States and Tribal Nations panel, which was a lot of fun, by the way, guys. Good job. A lot of good work going on there, but we have a lot of pipelines and it's still not enough. Or we have pipelines in the wrong places, or, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But Kern River Gas, which carries gas primarily from southwestern Wyoming through the Wasatch Front of Utah, down through Utah and into Las Vegas and ultimately to California. Williams Northwest Pipeline, the now sister company of Mike's Pipeline, Mountain West, that carries gas from the Four Corners area, Ignacio plant at the very south end, in the San Juan Basin, all the way up through the Piceance, the eastern side of the Uintah, and through southwestern Wyoming and up to the Pacific Northwest, where we also have premium markets for natural gas in the Rockies. So our two premium markets here, Southern California and the Pacific Northwest, particularly during the winter, as has been stated before in the producer panel. The winter is when things get real spicy. So, is this thing still going? Oh, I've got all these little things. Rockies Express, Rex, that carries gas from west to east. It's got its own economic problems. SIG and WIC. These are two pipelines that both interconnect with the tailgate of the Chipeta gas plant that many of us are familiar with. Chipeta, which is a Western Midstream processing facility, 25% owned, I believe, correct, by the Indian tribe. That plant can deliver into 3 pipelines, ultimately. Mountain West, Williams Mountain West, Williams Questar Pipeline, for all I can remember. It's changed its names too many times, Mike. Why do you keep doing this? But into Mountain West, which can carry the gas over to Kern River and then ultimately to premium markets, but also to SIG and WIC, Colorado Interstate Gas and Wyoming Interstate Company. Both of those delivery points at the tailgate of that plant carry the gas kind of more into the Colorado, up and over to the east, eastward in Wyoming, and over to the Mid-Con market, where it fetches a pretty steep discount to Rockies gas, Rockies sort of proper gas, and West Coast Pacific, Southern California gas. So, and obviously Williams Mountain West Pipeline. So these are the pipelines that I spend the most of my time looking at. Ruby also is a thing. And anything else? Transwestern, that's more southwestern, and I think El Paso Natural Gas as well. Yep, there you go. It's kind of covered up by, I guess I'll look at this one. Oh no, I have a little tiny screen. Again, I'm not a genius, guys. There's a little tiny screen up here. Okay, Kern River. We'll get back to the conversation between me and Mike, but real quick, Kern River, this is what carries the gas, again, to the southwestern, to the Southern California premium markets. This is where we want all of our gas to go. Of course, this or the Pacific Northwest. Both of those fetch serious winter premiums, especially in the last few years, as has been mentioned. We did see a Rockies index, month index of $49.57 for this past January, which was just, everyone's head exploded. My whole office. We were all really worried about the volatility destroying companies, and or a whole bunch of end users maybe just not paying because they thought, this is crazy, there's no way that this is real. You guys probably saw a lot of the headlines in Southern California of utilities passing these prices on to their customers, and many customers expecting to just absolutely not pay. So lots of utilities ended up with massive under recoveries on their general service rates or their sales rates to residential and commercial customers. And we had to do a little bit of chasing to recover some of our accounts receivable, I guess, where actually many of our customers were not hedged for the winter, despite us begging them and pleading with them to please hedge because things were going to get pretty bad. Actually, let's see. Can we go back? So what I wanted to show here, though, is you can actually see some of these capacities. So Goshen receipt here, this is actually probably not a useful number because it says 600,000. It's actually limited on the Mountain West side, I believe, by the ML 104 West Goshen segment. So that's where Mountain West pipeline interconnects with this pipeline. And it's limited, I believe, Mike, 389,500 decatherms operationally available capacity, probably all sold, right? 100% subscribed. Everything's subscribed. This whole pipeline pretty much fully subscribed all the way to California, meaning every last bit of capacity has been spoken for on term contracts. So that poses problems for us trying to get more and more and more gas out of the Uintah Basin and to the places where it fetches the most value. All right, this is Mountain West. This is Williams Northwest Pipeline, again, carrying, you can see that cluster down there in the Piceance and the Uintah. They have to turn, this map is really annoying because of the way they had to turn it, but you just tilt your head a little bit. And gas generally flows from the southeast to the northwest end. Again, Oregon and Washington were dealing with $50 gas this past January. We all wanted to sell lots of $50 gas. Actually, a lot of you guys sold a lot of $50 gas, so good on you. And it makes you feel kind of like, I hope you guys dialed down like the gas you were sending to your tank batteries, right? Especially when you had like turnaround season and refineries started getting long, and it's like sell more gas, right? Because you can't get the oil out. We'll have to figure out how to be more responsive to some of these market events. It might bode pretty well for the producers if we can be faster in reacting to them. But all right, and then SIG and WIC, and these are really tough. I actually have every one of these maps, the actual physical maps, sitting on my table over here at my little booth. And so if anyone has any questions about this, there's a few extra notes on here from prior, presentations and stuff. But SIG/WIC, again, it carries the gas over towards the east mostly. There are real constraints in getting this gas wheeled back over to the the northeast receipt of the Kern River pipeline. All these pipelines are interconnected in multiple places, but it's very complex, interconnecting with pipelines, transporting sometimes twice, 3 times just to get your gas to market, and it's tough. It's really tough trying to maximize the value of the gas production. And then to Mountain West Pipeline. This is actually recent. If I had the mouse, you could hover over each of these, and this shows where your constraints currently are. Yellow means it's over 80 to 99% capacity. For all intents and purposes, we generally assume that just means it's practically constrained. And usually, yes, if you hover over, say, the Goshen interconnect on that left-hand side on the bottom left, there's like 900 decatherms of available space. So it's because somebody messed up a nomination and got cut, probably, by 900 decatherms. Who knows? But there are real constraints even now. The constraints get even wilder in the winter. And I think I might have a slide here that shows how many days of constraints. Oh, yeah. So I stole this mic from one of the marketing presentations that was given back in March from the pipeline. And there's constraints all the time. And this, again, lends to, like, we need expansion because the gas wants to go from where it's being produced to where it can be of most value. We want to get from the supply areas to the demand areas, and just like water flows downhill, gas likes to flow to where it fetches the most value. But this makes it very difficult. Like, clearly, it's difficult. And again, this is calendar year. And these constraints are massive, and some of you guys feel it like very, very deeply when you get that phone call from the pipeline that says, shut in some wells because we don't have space for you. Messes everything up. And this is not to say the Mountain West are the bad guys. These are the guys that on the front line actually here trying to figure out, and it was heartwarming to see that there's, Mike, I didn't actually know about one of your little expansion plans that you mentioned there. You guys didn't tell me last week. What the heck? But it's pretty great. even that extra 85,000, like, I'm stoked about that. That's very cool. But here's the Uintah Basin zoom in that actually Mike put up too. It doesn't have all my little annotations. That's all on my physical paper copy over there. But I guess we don't have to go into too much detail here because Mike just covered it. Okay, and so here was an opportunities thing that they had presented last spring, and of course it's a little outdated because it doesn't have some of these other ones. But notice that gas can easily flow from west to east, absolutely, because it is bilateral. Unfortunately, though, you're flowing from a point on the pipe where the value is high to a point on the pipe where the value is low. So you're literally flowing in the opposite direction, and gas doesn't like to do that unless it absolutely has to, or unless a pipeline forces you to do that. And Mountain West doesn't really have that type of contract where they force you to flow in reverse. Other pipelines sometimes do. They do enforce those clauses. But yeah, so that's where we're at. Let's see here. Okay. The next thing, Wyoming. So in some of my discussions with one of Mike's colleagues, Joseph Holtz, we were discussing, I had some questions for him about like, well, if we could get the gas to Goshen, what's the deal? Because Kern is already fully subscribed, pretty much. And he suggested that I look at Wyoming's natural gas production and the fact that it's been declining, right? And it has been declining, as well as we're piling on a few 100,000 decatherms of new demand in southwestern Wyoming through power burn. And so I think that our supply-demand balance is going to be changing, is going to be shifting, and we'll discuss this a little bit more. Actually, Mike, you have a microphone. If you want to like interject and say, Reed, you're full of it, or like, here's a little bit of color, or anything, you got to help me out, Mike. Just let me know. But so this is the issue: is some of the gas that is entering that Kern pipeline at the very north end, those supplies may be declining. The amount that actually enters the pipe at that point may be in decline to the degree that it needs to be replaced with something else. And if it can be replaced at Goshen, potentially with Piceance or Uintah gas, it would be really, really cool. It would be awesome. So if you guys are going to attempt to make this 700, 800 million a day, BCF a day, like that's where I would say we should get that gas, is we should try and get a good chunk of that gas. Now, this is beyond what Mike mentioned here of just getting the gas simply moved. This is sort of phase one, getting the gas moved from where it's produced out of a hole in the ground over to where it can be processed, and then it's delivered at the tailgate of Chipeta in this case. Well, the gas then has to go somewhere in order to be monetized, in order to be sold. Getting it from that point over to the west to Goshen Interconnect right now is not in the cards. At the moment, it's not in the cards. But I think that it would be a worthwhile exercise to really start hearing a desire, right, from industry, from everybody, to maybe pile in and consider entering into long-term contracts that would underwrite an expansion from that east side of the pipeline. Maybe, I don't know if it would be just from Fiddler or all the way from White River Hub, but all the way over to Goshen, so that yes, if we are going to be producing an extra 300 or 400 million, that we can get it to somewhere where it's a lot more valuable than the SIG and WIC markets, where you're getting like a $9 discounts to what you would otherwise be selling. But what do you think, Mike? I gave you a bum mic.
Is it on? Oh, there we go.
It's now.
IT challenge today. Sorry about that. Yeah, we're looking at alleviating a number of those constraints that Reed pointed out on our system, especially on our southern system, getting more gas from Fiddler, it's our compressor station, near Chipeta's processing plant, here in the basin, getting that gas to Goshen and on to Kern River and then on to California, where it will fetch the highest price. So we are looking at what we can do to expand our Fiddler compressor station. It's looking now like any expansion on our southern system is going to require looping pipe, and so we have our 24-inch diameter mainline pipe. So anytime you're talking about like looping pipe or adding compression, I mean, those are pretty expensive solutions, but we are looking into those to try to get more gas to Goshen. Another thing we're seeing on our system, in addition to just trying to move all this gas to the west, to these premium markets, we're seeing increased demand on our system from power plants converting from coal to natural gas. And then in southwest Wyoming, there are a number of trona mining processors that we currently serve, some of them we don't. But they're looking to expand too. So we're actually looking at a potential significant demand on our system. So that would help gas find an end market too.
Yeah, so we'd be bringing, the demand is actually coming to the supply in that case, and co-locating sort of in the actual supply zone in southwestern Wyoming, which is great for them. It makes a lot of financial sense. Yeah, so I guess where are we at? Wyoming's declining. We're in growth. We're growing. And okay. And then finally Pacific Storage. So I just wanted to tack this in. This is a little bit more market and less midstream, but so Pacific Storage, the storage levels, we'll do this real quick, Mike, I'm sorry. So last January was chaos, was really crazy, as has been mentioned before. It was $50 index here in the Rockies. It was $32 index down in the San Juan. So those San Juan producers out of Farmington, they were able to sell a bunch of their gas at $32 per decatherm. This all was in large part because Pacific storage levels are low. The Pacific has, I think California alone has about 375 BCF of storage, billion cubic feet of storage capacity. Contrast that to Clay Basin, which is about 54 BCF of working gas storage on top of, I don't know, 60 BCF of base gas or something like that, the gas that never gets to move. A few years ago, about 50 BCF in Southern California was reclassified from working gas to base gas, so it could no longer be touched. So their capacity was dramatically reduced. That's really problematic because our Western sort of state society, everything has been built upon the expectation of X amount of transportation capacity from the supply areas to demand areas, and Y amount of storage capacity to act as a shock absorber in case of whatever. But the shock absorber has been massively reduced in California to the tune of 51 BCF. So an entire Clay Basin storage basically was kind of taken off the table. And we're left with, and if you look now, these are the most recent numbers from the EIA. Pacific, it shows on the very far right, says we are currently 7.3%, below the 5-year average for this time of year. But what's interesting is 6-7 years ago, the 5-year average was significantly different than it was right now, or than it is right now. It's actually like 70 or 50, 75, 80 BCF higher, 5-6 years ago. And so this 7.3% is kind of misleading because it's actually more like 25, 30% below what our general infrastructure was kind of expecting to have. And so I believe, I don't know, to put a fine point on it, this is Pacific Storage 5-year average. It has been in steady decline. This is over the last 7 or 8 years. So we're just walking into a tinderbox again this winter right now. Even though the rest of the country you can see are massively above their 5-year averages for storage, Pacific is very, very low on an artificially low base, or I guess a newly low base. So I'm just saying, get ready. The volatility is not going anywhere at all until we see some additional infrastructure development. Whether it's storage is preferable, I think, in Southern California, if only they could have more storage, but boy, they're not making that easy. But additional infrastructure, and go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, we're also looking at increasing the capacity of our Clay Basin storage field. So it's the largest storage field west of the Mississippi, I think. And if you think of our system, like I said earlier, as an H on its side, it's kind of in the middle. But it is a big shock absorber for the country. And when we have these extreme cold weather events, that means demand just suddenly skyrockets. And then at the same time, you might have freeze-offs in the field. So then production can drop at the same time. And then you see these wild price swings. And storage would help alleviate that. So we're looking at that. And then also with renewables, having something that's more dispatchable to fill in when renewables aren't making electricity that's another need for storage. So we're definitely trying to increase
the
our
first
clay
I've
basin
heard this,
capacity.
Mike.
So
Just right now.
I'm all full of surprises.
Gosh dang it. You're keeping me awake. All right. Yeah, so that's where that is, Pacific Storage. And yeah, questions. Okay, we'll all be over there, whatever. But now I'm just going to go sit down for a minute and talk to Mike. Oh, also, we're just going to chit chat for a minute and then we're going to open it up for questions. So hopefully you have questions. Make them good ones. Actually, they don't have to be gas related, do they, Mike? All right, so this was meant to be. I'm just going to sit with you. We've known each other for 4 or 5 years. It was a Proper Burger in Salt Lake City, I think. That was like 5 years ago. All right, so I don't know, Mike. Like, for one, like, what's the lead time on some of these other expansions? Like, I know that like just breaking through the Mighton, just breaking through Mighton was seemed like an insurmountable challenge, or maybe not insurmountable, but the lead time just didn't work. It just didn't work. Hence, we're starting at Brundage.
Right. So the answer is it depends on this open season that we're hoping to go out with next month. That capacity, we're targeting to have in service July 1 of 2024. And the reason we can do that is because we need to do work within like an existing facility. So no new compression. We don't need to get an air quality permit. Those can take quite a while. We're regulated by the FERC again, and they have blanket certificates. So for certain activities, it's sort of like a mini environmental review. And so this current expansion we're looking at falls under that category. Initially, we were extending that pipe from Brundage to Mighton, but there are historic irrigation canals that we would cross, and we couldn't get the FERC requires a no effect from the SHPO, not a no adverse effect. So they have an even higher bar than the SHPO, and we couldn't get a no effect because we would cross these historic canals. The canal owners, they're fine if we cross them because we would restore everything. The SHPO would be fine because we would restore everything, but we can't get a no effect from the SHPO because we would be affecting them. So something like that, we have to get a project-specific certificate from the FERC, and now those are taking upwards of like 2 years to get. So we talk about like doing something to our southern system, adding more pipe or compression. We're probably looking at about 3 years from the time we have like a project until it's in service. And we have to have customer support too. FERC doesn't let us just go build things and hope like customers will come. Williams doesn't operate that way, so when we have a project, we have to have customer support for that project before we even go forward.
So it would be 3 years, just to use that number, 3 years from the moment that you have, like, say, a successful open season on the concept, or like 3 years from when?
It could be, maybe a couple years after we have signed legal agreements. So we go out with an open season, we get bidders, and then we award the space, and how we award that's all spelled out in our tariff. And then once we have, the next step is to sign like a contract essentially with that shipper. And then I think on these larger projects, once we sign the contract, maybe being in service in 2 years.
Okay. The last time that we did a big South System expansion, that was above max rate, right? That was at 25 cents, I think, instead of 18. All of those contracts were what, 25 year, 20 year?
15.
They were 15? Oh, but there's probably extensions. Oh, okay, that's what we saw, 15. Okay, interesting. All right, that's cool. What about the potential for expansion at Clay Basin?
Too early to say. It's very preliminary. We have some ideas. Fortunately, now being part of Williams, we have assets that we didn't, and resources we didn't have before. So in the past, it was kind of the commercial group, which I'm part of, getting together with our engineers and kind of working on ideas when we had time, and then just to see if ultimately they'd be commercially viable. But now at Williams, there's actually a group of people that all I have to do is literally fill out a form and email it to someone. And I can be pretty vague, like how much capacity can you create from this point to this point? And then they'll do all the legwork and come back with an estimate, and then we'll see if it's commercially viable and make decisions at that point.
Oh, you guys can switch off of this slide, by the way. I don't know how to do that, but you guys can switch over to. Oh, there's us. Look at this. We look good. All right. But the next expansion though, from Brundage to Chipeta, how much additional? Because I was just trying to do the math when I was staring at it. It's not. I had assumed it would be about 90,000 decatherms of new capacity. Is it still about that, or is it bumped up?
If you count the operationally available,
it's already
40.
There. Yeah.
So it's like that brings us to like 165 currently. And so this would get us to like 250. So it's like another 90.
So, okay, but you're going to convert the 40,000 of operationally available to
firm,
so you'll have about 125,000 sellable firm in the next. Oh, okay. All right. Cool. That's going to help.
This is the marketer picking my brain.
Yeah, I'm like, I may be a part of this bidding process, so, you know. But hey, everybody gets to listen to my questions and hear your answers, so it's beneficial to all. And then an additional 85, potentially, hopefully, sometime down the road. That will be an interesting conversation as well. And that would be an extension of JL 138 then, the 16-incher.
Yep. So that would take 2 to 3 years.
So that one would take longer. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. Now I'm thinking. I just want more questions for Mike. But we're going to open it up now. I think I've said everything I have to say, and I don't know, Mike, you got anything else to round it out before we just open up the floor and they start asking us weird questions?
I don't, other than, as Reed pointed out, we're like almost completely sold out almost everywhere. All the high value paths are sold out, and we are constrained quite often, so we're quite busy looking at a whole bunch of different projects, so it's an exciting time.
And everything midstream, guys, like literally anything midstream, ask a question, shout it out, I'll repeat it for you, and then we'll hash it out. We'll try and solve all the problems. Scott?
Yeah, so I think Williams is like, what, third largest transporter of gas, liquids in the country?
I'm not sure, but that sounds about right, yeah. Williams handles about a third of the natural gas in the country.
Yeah, okay, so I'm pretty familiar with Williams because I used to work for them. And I know where a lot of those assets are. So you think there's going to be a lot of competition for capital in other parts of the country? So in other words, great projects in this part of the world, but you're going to be competing with other projects around the United States. What do you think about us getting that capital?
So competing for capital. So within the Williams organization, are there projects or different pipelines that will be competing for capital against these expansion projects?
I mean, I haven't seen that because we've only been there 6 months, so it's just too soon for me to tell. But I mean, that's definitely a potential problem or issue.
I don't think it'll be a problem, Mike. I don't think, because we have massive demand growth out here in the West, as well as the production growth. And so the mismatches and the arbitrages are getting bigger and bigger and bigger out here. I think that's what's,
right. And then
and if the customers are signing up for this stuff and they're creditworthy, then it's going to be easy to bank, right?
Yeah. And it would come down to obviously the capital requirements. I mean, obviously some require more capital than others, and then the internal rate of return. It would all be evaluated on a project by project basis, as I'm sure you know.
Other questions? Anything? Anybody?
So with all the infrastructure in, let's see if we can get all the infrastructure in, move as much gas as we want. It's a wish. Do you think there's still going to be a massive differential for the Rockies gas compared to any other parts of the country?
So,
We've taken a hit in the past on our gas, right? Because basically we can't get it out of here. But we have been able to get it out. Or it's cost us a lot because we've got to put a long distance. So what do you think? You think once we get it opened up, we'll get national pricing?
I definitely have an answer for this.
Yeah, you're probably
Okay,
better suited to answer this one.
So we'll start with pie in the sky. As much transport as you ever could imagine. Naturally, all spreads will go to zero, right? But nobody could afford to underwrite a project that would get us to that point. I don't think any individual customer, any individual shipper would want to bite down on, that much. It's just unlikely. I mean, the game theory doesn't really say that we would ever get to that point. I think it's always going to be these incremental growths, incremental projects, and I personally don't foresee a massive expansion on Kern specifically, so I think that there's a natural lid to what we can reasonably do out of here via Kern. There's always southbound, or southeastbound, I guess, via Northwest Pipeline, which Iron Horse and Stagecoach deliver into at Red Wash, Glen Bench, Corral Point. I don't know why I'm looking at you about that one, because you don't work on that point, but anyway, but so there's still some capacity to head southeast, but then it has to cross El Paso Natural Gas to head back west over. So you have to transport it twice. So like it just gets worse and worse. It gets harder and harder and harder. And every time we expand one pipeline, then what's the deal with the downstream pipeline? Is that downstream pipeline full? So I don't think that that's like a worry that spreads go away. I am not worried about spreads going away. If anything, we're just worried about spreads getting more insane and just harder to plan around, and just more volatility that makes, like has been mentioned earlier, like investment is tough when you're getting $2.30 gas in the summer, but $47 gas in the winter. What are you supposed to do, and how do you operate around that? Your cash flows are terrible.
And I mean, some of these projects that we're looking at, I mean, they won't go. They won't stand up by themselves. The economics won't look good. And then you always have market forces changing. I mean, was it 15 or so years ago, we thought we were running out of gas in this country. Everybody was coming to the Rockies thinking this is the last place we're going to get natural gas. And then, and gas prices were high, they're like $15. And then we start to hear the rumble of the beast in the east, the Marcellus. And then fracking really started to take off. And so all of a sudden we have all this gas that we didn't think we had before. When Rex was built, so that's the pipeline that goes from eastern Wyoming to Ohio, that was to deliver Rockies gas to the northeast. And Questar Pipeline, like right on the heels of that, we were looking at our own expansion to go the same direction with a big 36-inch diameter pipe. And then quickly the Marcellus production started to take off, and then that put a halt on us going that direction. And then now Rex is actually, gas is coming from the Marcellus this way. And we have an overthrust pipeline that runs across Wyoming, 36-inch diameter. There's two of them the same diameter for the most part. So we're seeing Marcellus gas come through Wyoming and maybe on to Ruby and to the premium West Coast markets.
So you guys dodged a bullet because you were slow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, any other questions? If not, then we're going to give you guys another sweet, sweet break. Oh, yeah. Sure, what's up, Kevin? That would have been 335,
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess I kind of left that part out. So right now the gas, as I mentioned, we turn the flow on 40 around. It's a 20-inch diameter pipe. The MAOP, I think, is around 850. The MAOP of JL 138 is 1400, so we can cram more gas in there, and it's a 16-inch line. So by extending that to Chipeta, the thing that I failed to point out was we would turn the flow of 40 back around like it originally was, and so those arrows, they were purple, showing a blended stream going to Chipeta, and then if we did that 138 extension, we turned 40 around, and then process gas would come back headed towards the west. And so that actually would increase capacity on our southern system. So that's another benefit of us.
So your ML40
Extending.
wouldn't be split between a west and an east anymore. It would just
Right, it would-
all just be one pipe again, like
Yep.
it used to be 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we could transport more gas. I mean, it's not a lot more gas, but it
More than
it
zero.
helps. Yeah.
Yeah. Every last bit helps. Thanks for pointing that one out, Kevin. Any others? Any good brain burners? Any hard ones? We can make up stuff all day. Yeah, go ahead.
With the increased capacity of Clay Basin, do you anticipate have another pipeline going to it, or just increase the field itself?
Oh, this is a question about Clay Basin capacity and what it would take to make that. Would that be an additional interconnect or simply increasing the capacity of the field?
It's just too early to say at this point. I mean, we just have like some ideas, like, well, kind of like, what if we did this? Is that even feasible? Would it create more space in Clay Basin? Then the next step would be, looking at the pipelines in and out of the basin, but we're just not there yet.
So this is just like geophysics, calculation stuff, all that? Okay. Too early. Too early. Too early. Either he won't answer something or he can answer something.
I'm being honest, it's too early.
Yeah, I actually believe him. I believe him. It's too early. All right.
Thank you.
Is that it? All right, we're both around. Mike, are you sticking around for a little while, or are you going straight? You got other engagements?
Getting back in the car and
He's got other
going to
engagements.
Salt Lake.
Yeah. I'll be here through tomorrow. Any other questions or anything else, I'll be back at my little table. But we appreciate you guys having us up here to talk about this. This is a really important thing for obviously both of us and both of our organizations. This is all we do. This is all we do. We try and we beat our brains against the wall to try and solve this problem, as many of you know. But we are here, Summit Energy's here with you guys trying to get this thing fixed. And Williams Mountain West Pipeline is here as well, right? So we appreciate your time. And we'll talk to you after this.
Thank you.